Hello, possums. It's your in-house sociologist, Dr. Lena Rodriguez. So let's dive in. The No Kings protest went off extremely well. So fantastic, such a good turnout. And also, of course, no significant violence or arrests. It's a miracle. Blessings. You have to celebrate that. But I've got more good news. Candace Owen had booked a public speaking tour in Australia, and I'm ashamed to say sold 15,000 tickets. But our government banned her. She didn't pass the character test. So let's keep the old school character test. So she can't come. She's snarling about it, as you could imagine. No, and Prince Andrew has been stripped of his title. So after 1,000 years, he's the one that lost the title. There have been others over the years, and who can forget Wallace Simpson? Blessings to Wallace if you're out there. She's an Australian YouTuber, and her twin Judy. So the point being, Prince Andrew, who was always a sleazy butthead, has lost his princedom. I'm sure the British public will still have to pay millions of pounds to, look after him in his dotage. But that brings up the question of Fergie, the Duchess of York, very strange woman, and she always lived beyond her means. This is the thing, isn't it? With people who have millions and millions of dollars, they still extend themselves. But guess who bailed? Now, this is for entertainment purposes only. Guess who bailed Fergie out for 15 years? Did you guess? Epstein. Epstein. And this is where the worlds all come together because A-listers hang with A-listers. So Ghislaine Maxwell mixed with all that set, and Fergie was able to make all these connections too. And it was one big party for 25 years. But now, apparently, she received not insignificant amounts of money from Epstein. Now, speaking of Epstein, look, if I was the praying type, I'd be on my knees 19 hours a day, hoping that Justice Thomas and Samuel Alito are on the list. What I would give for that. Right, wouldn't you love it? But of course, Moses Mike, the self-appointed porn monitor, oh, I'm just looking at the porn to make sure my son's not looking at worse porn. There's a perverted parental logic in there somewhere, but I can't quite find it. Anyway, he's holding out. He is refusing to swear in the new Democrat from Arizona. So I want to have a look at that. Now, we all know the reason he's refusing to is because she'd be the 218th vote, and then they'd have to release the Epstein files. Yeah, but no, but. Okay. In the sense, I'm a bit worried the Epstein files are going to be a bit of a disappointment, but nonetheless, it's a very big deal. And the Democrats, who seem to be absent, sorry, during the No King speeches, there were lots of speeches by Bernie, who's no longer a Democrat, and other fabulous second tier Democrats and other people. But where was the leadership? I heard they were actually on retreat. There was a Democratic leadership retreat. Can someone look that up for me? I mean, they're in retreat instead of being on the front foot. So they weren't brave enough to ally themselves with the people. Sorry, simply not good enough. Not good enough at this time. And every focus group keeps saying, people, we want to see someone fight for us. So they go, oh, they must be talking about someone else. So anyway, I digress. What happened was Hakeem Jeffries said, if the new Arizona woman is not sworn in by Friday, we've got a deadline operating here. By Friday, very swift and decisive action is going to be taken. What does that mean? It means a lawsuit, right? Pet, it's not enough. Arizona itself has already put in a lawsuit. This is the Dem leadership, and I keep making that distinction because there's lots of brilliant, talented, energetic Dems who are really good at talking to people who could really make a difference in the whole country. And they are kept on a very short leash while the leadership does whatever it's not doing. It's just shameful. But let's just have a look. How long can Moses Mike hold out? Like, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? Oh, here we go. Let's have a look. Let's have a look here. Moses Mike. It's exhausting, isn't it? Absolutely exhausting. Here we go. These these cards, I have to say, are not easy for him. Not that I have any sympathy whatsoever, but he's in defensive mode, right? He can't keep doing this, surely. This has wounded him personally in this role. Underneath that, lies, 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 lies. Look, these people could not lie straight in bed. You know, he's as bent as a fishhook along with all of them. Look at this, right? Just bearing in mind, he can't come up with a good enough lie at the moment to get himself out of this. He's not the sharpest guy ever in the history of the world, or even in the top 78 million. He's not a smart guy. This is the legal cases. This is Arizona and the terrifying Hakeem Jeffries. Right, that's the legal stuff. It's over. They're running out of road. They're going to have to act. But that involves sitting down with people and actually negotiating. And for the Republicans, led by the Yeti, none of them have any experience of negotiating as such, this new generation of Republicans in there. And so negotiation consists of me bullying you into submission and then defaming you on public forums. So this, I think, is a wedge issue for the Republicans. People are not getting paid. SNAP and other nutritional supplements are not going to be available after, I think, the next 2 weeks, and all the other obvious repercussions of an extended shutdown. Right. So I find this interesting. Another digression. If you're new to the channel and you can't handle digressions, I'm really sorry, but that's what I do. They either have to support the leader and disappoint the voters, crush the voters, maybe make their own voters angry. That would be awesome. They either have to go with him, or at some point they're going to have to defend their constituents against him. And because they have the moral fibre of puff adders, they can't do it. So the can gets kicked down the road, not just in terms of the shutdown, but making any tough moral issue, the party of morals. They wouldn't know a moral if it turned up in their lounge room. They would not have a clue. Fresh out of real morals. Now, the 20 billion that's been pledged to Argentina, we all know this is a gathering of the chainsaw bros. Trump wouldn't know where Argentina was. He only knows Malay's name because it's two syllables and he's met him a few times and the guy looks crazy. So even in his demented brain, he can remember the silhouette of Malay somewhere holding up a chainsaw, right? So he's got to help this guy. Two things. 20 billion is not going to cut it to haul Argentina out of the fire. That's not going to happen. You know, it's a very complex issue, A. And MAGA hate it. They so hate it. And you ready for the kicker? I saw on, I think it was NBC and CBS, two sources, they've now upped it to 40 billion. Now, let's have a look at that. It's not going down well with the base. I'm using the circus cards because, of course, why wouldn't you? All right, what have we got here? Well, the farmers who have also, suffered greatly with the tariffs that they voted for, they're particularly angry about this because Argentina is a competitor. So this to me represents the White House, not just the Yeti, because he doesn't come up with any policies. He just spits out ideas and someone else has to work it into some sort of ridiculous statement. They're not worried by this. They're not worried by their base anymore. Oh, wow. I don't think this is a permanent state, but it's right now. They figure that they're at the beginning of 4 years. They can get away with all this. They're probably doing their best to undermine the physical election process itself. They think they'll have it all sorted. They're not worried. Okay. Now we have this Eight of Pentacles hitching yourself to the wagon. Malay, I would say, is only going to go downhill from here. This is what happens when you ally yourself with other nutcases, right? So oh no, it just occurred to me. This is tariff revenue. Okay, now the tariff revenue is starting to add up. One estimate, which is, I've got no reason to argue with it, is already at about 200 billion, since the tariffs kicked in, which you have paid, America. We've paid it in other ways, but you guys are bearing the brunt. Yeah, this is going to actually make people upset. Here's the moon card, which is, look, it can also be the mental health card in the sense when you have a closed circuit like this White House cabinet, it's like you have the mad, the bad, and the ugly in a closed biosphere. They only talk to each other, they only listen to each other, they only argue with each other, they only disagree with each other. That is their world, and they're now entering the stage of full delusion. Full delusion. What does the Yeti think about his base being unhappy with the 20 stroke 40 billion to Argentina? Glad you asked. Does this look like a man who's worried? Doesn't get it. Doesn't get it. Doesn't get it. Not only no sympathy, minus 100 sympathy. Right. Now, where are we in our list? I want to get to Russell Vogt, who's one of the architects of the hideous Project 2025. He is, it's a bad joke. He's an economic advisor to the Yeti. Remember his name, Russell Vogt, because he's gone under the radar and now we're going to hear more and more about him. So he's one of the guys behind all this, whereas from what I understand, Scott Bessent, oh, look, this is another thing. I just found out last night, and I think I believe it. Scott Bessent is gay in the sense he has a husband. How interesting is that? But he had a real job in the real world, and his job was to convert these nonsensical ramblings. How do we get all the money? How do we give the peasants nothing? You go and tell us how to do that. So Scott Bessent was given that gig. Now he sold his soul to take this job. And I don't think it's going well because he's had a couple of physical dust-ups. He had a brawl with Elon Musk. I would have paid money for that. And someone else, like he's a powder keg. But let's go back to Russell Vought. Now, his goal is to dismantle the entire federal government because that is the plan for Project 2025. That's what they're aiming to do. So, is he gaining traction? Is he losing power? Is he treading water? What's happening with him? What's happening with him? Russell Vought. Oh, look, he's a truly hideous man. Okay. So his first card out of the blocks was the Fool card. And it can be a foolish act. It equally can be quite sophisticated in terms of letting go and trusting the universe and all those nice things. However, in this case, let's keep it simple. I think he's walking off a cliff. Legal things are going to start with A, what he's trying to do, but B, fast forward a few years and he might be one of the few held accountable for his behaviour. Dare to hope, dare to dream. But there is a legal thing around him. He's juggling because I put him in the same category as Peter Thiel, who's actually a woof woof. He's looking for the Antichrist and searching for the Antichrist. I think he is the Antichrist. I mean, these guys are like a scene out of The Omen or something, isn't it? I mean, that's an ancient reference. But they don't have any idea how governments work. They don't know what governments do, good or bad, they just don't know. Their only relationship to government is, are my taxes going down? That's their only intersection with the idea of government. And yet they want to dismantle the entire government of the United States of America and put themselves in. Oh, look, he gets the devil card and ho hum. They're chained together in this folly. It's an absolute folly. I seriously think these guys fancy themselves, if you look at their business histories, they all follow a same pattern. Guys getting together, shooting the breeze, coming up with some ideas, paying people at the beginning very well to make those ideas work, whether it was PayPal or Palantir or whatever, and then riding a wave and taking public money, just as Elon does with SpaceX. They take public money to launch their projects and then they get the benefit. the financial benefit. It's the same playbook as the old robber barons. So public money would be used to create roads or railways, and then they would own it and make the money. It's like Trump Senior, Mary Trump's grandfather Fred, who made huge wealth getting public housing contracts. You know, it's the boys' club. They're only interested in government in terms of how to secure another money stream for themselves. They don't think about other people for a nanosecond. Never have, and they're not going to start now. So that's Russell Vought. I think we have to keep an eye on him. I think Peter Thiel is starting to look more ridiculous and more crazy. But that's because he's been doing interviews. All these guys are better off down in the sewers where they belong and when people don't see them or actually hear their voice because they're just disturbingly free of not just compassion. You don't expect compassion from these guys, but they're not even realistic. They're not, they have no complexity. No complexity. All right. Now, in other nonsense, never a shortage of nonsense. So Mazie Hirono, Democrat for Hawaii, had a conversation with the Yeti and he came out afterwards. It must be so disconcerting for these people. They have the experience of sitting there, we would say in Australia, with this galah, someone who, just talks nonsense. And then they have a news conference and he says what he thinks he heard from you. And this is a classic. He came out and said she wanted a tunnel from mainland US to Hawaii. That'd be cheap and easy. A tunnel under the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii. And I said, no, no, no. We'll do a railroad. Now, if he was in the recreation room at an aged care facility, people would be avoiding him, going, he's the mad guy, he's lost it. He left the planet some time ago, wouldn't you? Can you believe it? All right, let's just check the news here. Oh, now this is important. The stock market. It's been kept afloat as we speak by AI stocks and big tech stocks, the same guys I've just been talking about. They're making money hand over fist, but for how long? But anyway, they're the ones keeping the stock market from plunging into an 80-year hole in the ground. But they are doing this. I just want to develop that point I was just making about whose money they actually use. So to generate crypto and why it's called crypto mining and all of that stuff about crypto and AI, you need massive amounts of electricity, amounts where you can't count the zeros of units, ergs, or kilowatts or whatever it's measured in. Compared, we were already producing too many greenhouse gases with how much power we were using and wasting anyway. Then come these high-tech industries that are complete vultures for electricity, right? So, I mentioned on a previous video, you, the American public, are paying for that. That's why everyone's utility bills are going through the roof. It was happening in Canada too. It's probably happening here if I ever had attention to look at what's happening in Australia. I rely on my housemates to tell me the Australian news because I'm so immersed in international news. Okay. Now, Ontario has introduced a bill. I don't think it's been voted on yet. And just to say, no, if you are consuming these huge amounts of power, you can pay your own power bills. I think that's really important, and I want to see if that's going to catch on. We're only talking here blue states because the red states don't know what day it is except when it's Sunday, and that's when they go to be able to, eye off the young girls and pretend to be saints. So let's have a look. Will this idea that Ontario's come up with of pushing back on the tech barons pay your own power bills? Then your profits won't be as high because you have to actually pay for what you use. They're so used to getting a free ride. Let's have a look. Will this idea take off? Will other states do it? Just while I'm shuffling with that, it's true US parcels, not everywhere, but in some states, in some depots, have actually been destroyed. So I can't imagine what's happening with the Postal Service as a citizen there because you've got lots of countries boycotting it. You've got the tariffs that you have to pay before you get your swimsuit that you're going to sell on Etsy or eBay or whatever it is. Are other states going to push back on the tech bros? Well, this is promising, I think. Now, this Knight of Wands suggests action. I think people will start to hear about this. You can tell people about this. People can start to lobby and say, look, our utility bills are through the roof. We have to act on this and pretty smartly. It's just like no kings or anything else. The more people who do it, the more people do it. But this is also representing a union between, and it could be a union between big tech, high tech stuff and state governments because they want to operate everywhere. If people actually stand up to them, they don't have a choice. How juicy is that? But this is about people drawing attention and joining together on this issue. People don't really get it yet because everyone's so burnt out and exhausted and scrabbling to get through the next few days that people haven't got a clear idea of what this is about. But let's just take a moment here. You don't have to understand the technology or the science behind this. If it's explained simply, clearly, and well, bite-sized pieces, people do understand their power bills are going up. They get it. Okay? So you start from there, right? Good. And people strength. This is my new card for people strength, people power. Love that. So, yet another call for the Dems to rise up and reinvent themselves and not be afraid of being scary. Forget that. And if you are afraid of offending someone, move out of that job and let someone else go for it. You know. So let us hope. I think there's another bit of news. Let me just see here. Oh, now, what was his name? Of course, I'm drowning in notes. He was an NFC player. NFC player. I think his name's Chris Clue or something. Kluwe. Very smart young guy. Why can't I find my note on him? Um, give up, Lena. It's fine. Now, He is going to run for office, and I'm very pleased to hear it. And he is uber articulate, no nonsense, and exciting. He's like a fusion of Beto O'Rourke meets Gavin Newsom, meets somebody else, and his own man. And on a podcast, they showed, remember, he was the one, he was in a town hall meeting or something, and he delivered this rave about what MAGA stands for. And he reeled off all these hideous, destructive things very well. And then he said, I'm engaging in my right for civil disobedience, at which point he was arrested and escorted out of the hall. It's worth watching that video again, and I wish him all the best. So I am going to put that up, okay, pinning to the comments. So jump on the comments, talk to me, talk to each other, and I'll see you soon. And congratulations on the No Kings. Cheers.